Whereas a century ago, 4.7 million American families set their sons and daughters off to World War I. Whereas these men and women served selflessly and honorably in World War I. Whereas 116,516 Americans gave their lives in the war, and more than 200,000 were wounded. Whereas the tolling of bells is a traditional expression of honor and remembrance, and whereas in November 2018, the world will commemorate the 100th anniversary of the armistice that ended the fighting in World War I at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Whereas on April 6th, 2018, the United States World War I Centennial Commission called upon all Americans across the nation to toll bells in remembrance of those who served in the World War I on Armistice Day, November 11th, 2018. Now therefore be it resolved that the World War I Centennial Commission does hereby call upon all Americans across the nation to toll bells in remembrance of those who served in World War I at 11 a.m. on November 11th, 2018. We have marked the 100th anniversary of the armistice that ended the First World War and honored the Americans killed or wounded in service. Worldwide, the total number of military deaths was between 15 and 19 million. At the time, many believed this was the war to end all wars. Sadly, that was not true. The flawed peace and broken relationships that followed the Great War would lead in less than 20 years to terrible genocide and to World War II. 100 years later, America is still involved in war and conflict around the globe. Today, we gratefully remember the sacrifices of our veterans who had given their lives in defense of peace and liberty. And we earnestly pray that no more lives need be lost. May the Church Universal, and our church specifically, be instruments of peace. And would you join me responsively in a call to worship? In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it.
Many people shall come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths."
For out of Zion shall go forth instructions, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
He shall judge between the nations, and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat the swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Please join us in singing America the Beautiful.
Today I am here to explain my opinion as to what it means to be a veteran of the U.S. military and how my religious beliefs coincide with service to country. There are many ways to serve your country, such as the Peace Corps, religious ministry, law enforcement, nonprofit organizations. The list is large. Being a military veteran brings with it a lot of pride. Defending the flag, freedom, and honor of the citizens of the United States. I took an oath when I signed for the military. The enlistment oath under Title 10, Chapter 31, Section 502. Each person enlisting in an armed force shall take the following oath. I, John Evans, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States, and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. A safeguard was added to that in 1959. Enlisted personnel take an oath to the Constitution and President of the United States. Officers only to the Constitution. The draft, conscription, and service by compulsion was used in 5 conflicts: the Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, and the Cold War, which was Korea and Vietnam. Today it is voluntary, but with registration for the draft. The military is an armed force ready and willing to defend our freedoms. It is also a well-trained force equipped with the finest and latest equipment designed to deal with any emergency. The military does not only deal in armed conflict, but uses its capabilities to help people all around the world faced with weather-related disasters such as hurricanes and tornadoes, catastrophic earth outbreaks, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and man-made emergencies such as fire. The military does not train people to kill. It trains them to defend themselves and their fellow countrymen. Out of necessity, there are exceptions to some special voluntary units. Training in the military is taken very seriously. They have been doing it for over 200 years and have become experts. I became an aviation electrician, and training I received was worth 16 college credits at the University of Wisconsin. I didn't have to use them, but could have if I elected to do so toward graduation. They have several different levels of schooling. P for preparatory, A basic training, B advanced training, C specialized training. I attended P, A, and C schools. B schools are reserved for career individuals and were equivalent to a master's degree in the service. These are the categories I remember. I'm sure times and schooling have changed to meet the present needs. Most of the training capabilities are transferable to civilian life. Military life is fairly routine. Some jobs have only military application. You are trained to do a job, report for work every day, do your job, and return to the food, clothing, and shelter provided. The aspects of living together with many other individuals is a learning experience. It is tempered with military discipline and with strict health and cleanliness rules and regulations. Wartime service brings with it an entirely different set of attitudes, rules, and regulations. Those I have been around that served in combat basically come to the same conclusion. War is hell. Religion plays an important role in the military. Chaplains are part of the officer corps. Services are provided, but not dictated. In my opinion, religion gives transparency to the military. It gives the moral support to keep the military in check. The military of the United States is made up by the people, of the people, and for the people. Hopefully that will never change, and it will be used to defend our freedom, not to relinquish our freedom. Political and economic conditions affect the attitude toward the military. I had an uncle who enlisted in World War I. I have been told by my parents and grandparents, men flocked to the enlistment offices, wanting to join the fight against the Germans, many of which, he being one, were German ancestors. That same attitude was somewhat prevalent during World War II. My father was too young for the first and too old for the second, so he became an air raid warden, whose responsibilities were to put on his shiny steel helmet, take his flashlight, and patrol the neighborhood when the air raid siren sounded, which meant all lights, street, house, advertising were all turned off. He would check for any light escaping from drawn shades. He served his country. His brother, an Annapolis graduate, captained a cruiser during World War II. Then we entered the Korean War in concert with the United Nations peacekeeping force. Veterans of the Korean conflict weren't quite as well received as their predecessors. People were beginning to tire of war. The Vietnam War started in the late 50s and early 60s, which became quite politicized, and people rebelled. We are presently in all volunteer service. Our freedom is still under attack. This gives rise to new and different challenges. Those of us raised during the Second World War realized our vulnerability to foreign intrusion and therefore became quite vigilant. As to the increased use of modern technology developed during wartime, that same technology which protected our standard of life, improved our lifestyle, is now commonplace around the world. We are all aware of the fact freedom is not free. Those individuals, both men and women, who gave the ultimate sacrifice are not around to enjoy the benefits they so bravely protected and must always remain in our thoughts and prayers. Mike and Roberta Stout gave me a coaster which reads, "The land of the free because of the brave." Our religious beliefs keep us free from tyranny. Our military protects our religious beliefs. Our country shall remain the United States of America because of both. God bless America.